Adria, who is Trail Runner 615 on Instagram. And we're going to talk about mindset in conquering 100 miles and how that translates to helping other people reach their goals. Before I bring her to the show, let me remind you, you can catch this show and the other Run Try Bike shows on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, everywhere that you get your podcasts. Without any further delay, let's bring her to the show. Hi, Adria. How are you?
I am great. As promised, jazz hands.
Oh, yes, jazz hands.
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So you recently finished the Tunnel Hill 100, correct?
I did 2 weeks ago yesterday.
Congratulations. I do not
Thank
know much
you.
about Tunnel Hill, but I have completed a 100-miler myself. So
Nice.
we can
Commiserate.
lament about how that goes. So I know that you are a coach and you have done, is it mostly running coaching?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you have done running coaching for quite some time and a lot of pro bono running coaching. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is so amazing. I myself am an accountability coach, which is more of, I'm actually certified as a ultra running coach and as a certified personal trainer, but I have all this business education. So I spend a lot of my time working with people on where they want to get in life in general. Is it a fitness goal or is it a business goal? So mindset is a big thing. What would you say was like your number one like piece of your mindset that got you through 100 miles?
You paid for this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. For me, a lot of what I do in the ultra realm, and I'm not rare, I have realized, but I went literally in 2016 from a half marathon in January to a 50K in May. So I just I lit the fire and it's like, let's go, light the fuse. Let's just go explode the thing and do it. But it has taken me this long to get to the 100-miler. This was my first attempt and my first finish. But I think the reason that I do a lot of what I do in the ultra world is, there's two reasons behind it. It's, first of all, I got to prove to myself who I am in really hard times. And that translates a lot to my day-to-day life and my we'll call it my real grown-up job. And then also to prove to other people that they can do hard things. And so a lot of what I kept thinking, because it gets tough at 3:00 in the morning when it's pitch black and it's just headlamps bobbing and
you're cold.
Yeah. And it's raining. It rains for 8 hours. And all you want to do is get back to your stuff or get back to your people, or some people want to get back to their bed. I mean, I did too. But I think the idea that I have two very young, impressionable nieces, and I want to give them tangible things that they can look at and go, oh, I can do hard things too. And whether that's, my 6-year-old niece who's in first grade is a cheerleader, a competitive cheerleader. That's a thing I did not know existed. It does. But, to show her and her little sister, who is almost 2, that, you can do anything that you put your mind to. You just have to work hard enough to do it. And so I think those are the key things that got me through. Is I don't want to look at them and go, I gave up.
That is amazing. I remember my 100-miler, a lot of that motivation the last 30 miles was I want to be out of pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a foot thing happen, and I had this personal, I guess you could say, mantra that if I made it to 80 miles, I was not going to quit unless one of my limbs was falling off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just I didn't come this far just to come this far.
Exactly.
And which is a mantra of a lot of runners and a lot of people who achieve their goals. I didn't come this far just to come this far. And so I was at mile 70 something. I don't even know, probably 73 or something. And my foot it hurt really bad. I didn't know what was wrong with it because I'd never experienced pain in that part, really my feet at all. But I was just telling myself, I can either quit before 80 miles or I am in this for until that foot is falling off. And
Quit
you
it
know,
or committed.
yes, it's like quit or commit this moment. Like you've only got so many miles to go, so you better think of it. And it's dark and it's cold and you're wet
Mhm.
and you're just like, that bed sounds really good and my foot could be treated or whatever is going on with it. At least I wouldn't be dragging it around this course anymore. But that has been a big thing of mine also in my life, is showing other people what they are capable of, and that we can do anything we put our minds to. I personally have my own set of, I guess you should say, health issues. Like I had radiation when I was 23, and then a lot of people take that as a kind of, I don't know, just a negative for the rest of their life. Like they're going to be strapped with this disease and problem for the rest of their life. But I just didn't believe that that was my fate at 23 years old, that this was it. So I've been running since I was a child, but I was not willing to give it up just because of that. But I love that because that kind of goes to your coaching. You work with people with cancer, is that correct? Or who have
Mhm.
overcome cancer?
Yeah, that's a part of what I do in I don't even call it a coaching business because I haven't made money coaching in more than a decade. This is my labor of love for my community and for the people that really need this, but for one reason or another can't access coaching. And so my mom is a 2-time cancer survivor. My grandmother was a breast cancer survivor. I myself had a cancer scare at 26 or 27. And so that for me is a group of people that I find so passionate about getting back to what they were doing before or finding new ways to be really strong. And so, in talking to my mom very early on, after her first cancer journey, and I said, I want to be able to help people, and I want to be able to help people get to where you are and to figure out, oh, I can go out. And sometimes it's just walking. I can go walk a mile or I can walk 2 miles. And then working with this population of cancer warriors. And also we work with their support systems too. I had the pleasure this year of helping start a walking group with Fleet Feet for cancer warriors and their support systems. And being able to see those people come through this and not only be incredibly strong because of what they've been through, but reignite their passion for being outside or, sometimes running on the treadmill. If you're an indoorsy kind of person, that's your vibe, I'm here for that. But watching them regain their confidence and understand the benefit of strength through doing hard things, like that to me that's everything, and I feel the same way when I coach kids, is watching people come into their own through running.
That is exciting. And I have to say, because you mentioned treadmill and because you mentioned outdoors, not everybody is an outdoorsy person, like you said. Some do like the treadmill. What is the farthest distance you have run on a treadmill? Are you a treadmill lover or hater?
Yeah. I was actually on the treadmill this morning, but I only did, I think, 2.5 miles. But I'd say 2 weeks after 100, I think I might get a pass on that.
Let's maybe not say only. I get it too. I do the same thing, but a lot of people, 2.5 miles would be their,
Yeah.
marathon, their ultra.
And that's what I say is 1 mile is hard. 3 miles is hard. 5 miles is hard. Like every distance, running a mile for me is hard because I don't fall into my footfall that I'm comfortable with
First
until
mile's a
about 3
liar.
miles in. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think in training, the longest I went was 6 hours.
Very
And
cool.
I did not have music and I did not have Netflix. What I did have was I took some Peloton classes. So I guess that's technically music.
Podcast-ish or
Yeah, but
music-ish.
I had to learn to be bored because I knew I was going to be real bored in that 100-miler.
So my longest run on a treadmill is 6 hours and 10 minutes, which was a 50K. It
Wow.
was my first 50K, ironically, and of course, pandemic days, but it would have been outside, even though it had to be virtual that year. But we had an AQI, which if you're not from the West Coast, you don't probably look at the AQI ever, but it's the air quality based on the particles in the air, usually when there are wildfires. So we had an AQI of like 410, which is off the charts. It's like smoking packs of cigarettes while you're trying to run. And so that wasn't acceptable for me. And then on top of that, it was about 105 degrees outside. So between the air quality and the temperature, I was like, I'm doing this 50K on this treadmill. And
yeah.
that is, I had music, but you do have to learn to be bored a little bit. I switched it up with some walking intervals, so it would kind of like keep the and slower miles and faster miles and things. But a lot of people are surprised when they're like, you spent like 6 hours on a treadmill and you did 50K.
Yeah.
I actually PR'd my outside 50K the next one I ran, because probably I was just so happy to not be on a treadmill.
To not be running to nowhere.
Right, for 6 hours. But you do need, so I have seen you have a really cool tattoo, if I recall, on your wrist. And oh, you have two. This is the one that I was
actually three.
Three.
This one?
But, yes, that one. What is that?
So that is actually, it's a couple of different things. The vintage perfume bottle is because my mom collects vintage perfume bottles. So it has a vintage stopper on the bottle. But it is, catching lightning in a bottle and finding the thing that you love and that you're passionate about. And for me, that's twofold. My grown-up job is in artist management. I work in the music industry, and I had stepped away from it for a while because I had some interesting experiences, we'll put it that way. And I decided maybe I should do something else with my life, and work in a different sector of the music industry. And then I met an artist who I actually still, I'm actually not broke, but thank you.
So the comments on these podcasts get unhinged sometimes.
That's funny.
I forgot you could also see them. I'm looking at them occasionally if you see my eyes wander, and I'm like,
no, it's okay. Somebody said, girl, bye. That's why you're broke.
Shut up, because you're not rich.
You're lovely. May you have the day you deserve. But anywho.
I said that to the pharmacist this morning. You can read about that on Threads if you're bored.
So I found this artist that I just like, there was something about her voice that I was like, I have to work with this kid. And I actually still work with her to this day. And she has since performed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to honor Tina Turner. She's opened for some really big name acts. And that got me back into, being in artist management. And so between that and finding my vibe in the running community, like that's my lightning in a bottle. And when you catch lightning in a bottle, you got to hold on to it. So yeah. So I got this tattoo in Miami. I was at a conference for a week and had an extra day to spare and found an artist that I liked and went and got it.
I love it. So the reason I promise I didn't just ask about a tattoo randomly. I brought it up because I saw you had an Instagram post about it, and I was like, that is the coolest tattoo. But on top of that, you mentioned that mantras matter. And would you say that's your mantra, like finding
it's one of them,
capturing? Do you have other mantras you'd like to share with the listeners?
I mean, I do. A couple of different things. Like this means be in French, just be, exist, just be in the moment, and then this one is actually the incomplete circle, which signifies my mom's cancer journey, like not done yet. And so for me, during an ultra or during a tough race, that's the thing is, you're not done yet until you cross the finish line. You're not done yet. So, and then I also, I have a couple of different bracelets. I have one that says, just keep effing going. And I have since given that to a number of runners that I run with and people in my life who support my running journey. And then, I'm a big fan of Kirsten Ferguson from Peloton, and I actually took a lot of her classes in my training, her, Jocelyn Thompson-Rull, and Susie Chan. And Kirsten has a bracelet that says Hella Fire. And so I wore that one in my 100 miler as well.
I have my own mantras, obviously, as an accountability coach and a business coach. I have my own mantras, which two of them are kind of, we talked about one of them, which is you didn't come this far just to come this far. But they're kind of at war because I have another one that is don't keep doing something just because of the time and money or energy or whatever you've invested in it. Like learn when to say, this is no longer serving me, kind of thing. And so those two are kind of at war because you're always that little guy, if you can remember the meme or the picture where the guy is like cracking through like a mountain and he's like 2 seconds from the gold on the other side of the wall, but he doesn't know it. And so you're always that little guy like banging your way through this mountain, but you never know when the gold is. So it's always kind of a war of like, do you stop something that isn't serving you or do you keep pushing through it? And so I think like for me, especially with the 100 miler and races of any probably distance, but the 100 miler and further, especially, it's, set a point for yourself. For me, it was 80 miles. If it was no longer serving me, before 80 miles, okay, I didn't put that I put a lot of effort into it still, but I wasn't like endlessly like you're this close kind of thing. Like I wasn't the guy with like 2 more hits to go and he'd get to the gold. And so that's an important part to me, but also there's just so many. I think everybody needs a mantra or 2 or 5 for different situations. So I think it's really cool that you have taken that and you've even gotten a tattoo. For the listeners, I have 0 tattoos. I'm always like, oh, that one's really cool. But I don't know, maybe I also can't commit to things in my life.
I have 6. The other 3 are one's on my back and 2 are on my hip. So
are any of the rest of them running related or?
They're kind of all life related. I got my first one. I went to law school in Philadelphia, and my very first one was it's an outline of a bird. So it was like, I've learned to fly. My parents gave me roots and wings, and I moved to Philadelphia from little old Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and learned to fly. And then when I moved to Nashville, I got an ambergram that says fly. And then the one on my back is Gaelic, and it says nothing is impossible. What I didn't realize, though, is it translated. It's an entire paragraph. And I had already made the appointment before I got the official translation.
So do you have an entire paragraph on your back?
It's like this big. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that either, but I love that because that's yet another mantra and another way. So are you thinking of another 100 miler or another longer distance race like that?
Oh, girl, I'm already signed up for one. I'm actually running Dark Anchor in January, which was supposed to be my first 100. And I have a friend who happens to be the photographer at Tunnel Hill, and I've run the 50 miler there before. And I told her that I was running a 100 miler. I made a commitment, and I made it in probably the most public way that somebody should not do. I met Catherine Switzer, who is, the first woman to officially run the Boston Marathon with a number, at a meet and greet at the library after she did a speech. And she asked everybody that was there, what are you running? And I just, before I could stop myself, the words just fell out of my mouth. I was like, I'm going to run a 100 miler. She literally quieted the entire room and announced to the entire room that I was running a 100 miler and signed my book and said, it's only 100 miles. You go, girl.
That's amazing.
And I was like, oh, okay. So now I guess I'm doing this.
You're committed.
Yeah. But then in talking to my friend and telling her about that, she was like, why don't you just do it at Tunnel Hill? Why don't you just run Tunnel Hill?
That's why you have all the cool pictures. That's why you have all the cool pictures from Tunnel Hill.
Well, it also helps that I finished very, very late in the race. And so I was like the only finisher for a long time.
Well, shout out to the people who take a while, because I'm also one of those people.
I like to get my money's worth.
One of the RDs that I had made like good friends with, because she has my same name. Both of us are Lori's. She stayed up all night. Like all the other RDs went to bed. Like there were 3 or 4 of them, and they all went to bed except her. She was like, "I am staying up to see you finish."
I
And
love it.
I was just like, "That is the sweetest thing." And you're all emotional anyway at that point. And so I was just like,
Yeah.
"Buckle, please." Like pictures. Can I go to bed now? Because
Right?
it's like 1:30 in the morning or something.
Oof.
So yeah, it's always nice to have those people that kind of encourage you. I don't know anything about, like, I know of Tunnel Hill, but is it Dark Anchor? Is that what you said, the other one?
Yeah, Dark Anchor
I
is
don't
in
know that one.
January in Savannah. And it's
Oh,
actually it's a Yeti trail runners race. Jason Green puts it on,
yeah.
and it's a 34-hour race. But if you cross the 100-mile threshold, you get a buckle. So that was going to be kind of my lower stakes run,
Yeah.
because even if you don't get to 100, you still get a finish time and all of this. So,
So let's
but
talk
I'm going
about
for it.
I'm amazed. I did not know about that one, even though I am familiar with the Yeti group and Jason Green. I almost ran my first 50 at one of his, but I had to switch
Oh, nice.
up at the last second and not travel across the country to do it. So that brings me to what you mentioned about 34 hours. So it's a timed race, is what it sounds like. Is that correct? Okay. And you said that it's different. You still get a buckle, even, or you still get a time and probably a medal if you don't get to the 100-mile. And some people find like looped and timed races, they think lesser of them. And
I love them.
I
I
want it out
love
there
them.
that these are not. I actually talked to someone at the running event, TRE, last week, who
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I had never really thought about doing like a looped timed event." Is Dark Anchor like a 2-mile loop, 1-mile loop?
3.5.
3.5. Okay, so it's like some of them are up to like.
Which just long enough to be a pain in the
Mhm.
butt in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so I've done 2. I've done up to 2-mile loops. I don't know if once you get to the 10-mile, if we're gonna call it a loop still or not.
Yeah, that's still a long way to go before you
Yeah,
get back to your stuff and your people.
and there's a lot of 100-milers like Javelina and Rocky that are 20-mile loops or 25-mile that no one considers them loops. So I feel like
Yeah.
10 miles, I don't know that I'd call it a looped race, but what people think, they're like, "Oh, well, you can get to your stuff, you can get to people, you can get to an aid station every few miles. So that's not as hard as, say, a mountain 100." But I am here to tell you that I disagree, because it's the same thing as the people who yell, "No treadmill, I hate the treadmill, I don't want to." You have to get comfortable being bored
Mhm.
and not quitting when you can see the spot to quit every mile or
Mhm.
two. Like it comes up
Yeah.
and you're like, "I could sit down and never get back up again." And
Mhm.
that would be fine
It's
and no one
hard in
would
a
care.
different way.
Yes, it's hard in a different way. Was
Yeah.
Tunnel Hill, does it have much elevation gain?
No. It is fast and flat. I was not fast, for a couple of reasons. And not fast is totally fine. Like I work with a lot of people that are not fast and are totally cool with that, and they don't have a desire to get faster. Um, Couple of things. One, I did something to my knee at mile 39. So
Mm.
for 61 miles on and off, I ran with knee pain.
Sounds like
Uh,
CrossFit.
yeah, crazy, right? Like just keep going
Yeah.
and hope you didn't do any awful damage to it. But it wasn't bad enough for me to stop. So I was like, it's pain management at this point. Everything hurts. Keep going. I also have a heart issue where my heart rate can't really get up past a certain level. So I tend to be a slower runner anyway for that reason, because I'm not interested in passing out on a course. That's not the kind of scene I
Understood.
want to make.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it also rained most of the night, and I didn't have a pacer. So I just did it by myself. My brother, who is the loveliest human being, and I owe him so much for this, crewed me for he stayed awake the entire time.
Wow.
But I didn't have a pacer. So I was literally out there by myself. And because it was raining, it was really slippery. And I decided my race was not going to end because I fell down and broke a bone or slipped off the side of a
Or,
cliff. Like I was
tore
not
ACL
into
or
that.
MCL or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Right. So I ran a pretty speedy first 50 miles. And after that, my time slowed down a whole lot. And then my last 10 miles were pretty quick because that's when the sun came up.
And that, burst of light and
Yeah,
morning makes
which
you.
does so much for you. It's like, oh, I'm back in life.
Yeah.
But then half a mile before the finish line, my knee did the thing again for the last time, and it was irretrievable. So I walked the last half mile. I had all these grand plans of running in and jumping at the finish line and doing a whole thing. And my happy little butt just strolled my way in like I was shopping at the mall.
I'm pretty sure that's how I finished. I honestly don't even remember the finish. That's pretty sad, but I do not remember. I think I just kind of drug my corpse across it.
It's like, I know I was there because somebody took a picture.
And I will say that we always think those runs and jumps are going to look way cooler than they actually do. I remember,
they don't.
If you're familiar with Ohm, who's a co-owner of Run Try Bike, his was it Tahoe? He ran across the finish line after the Tahoe 200 and did a jump and stuff. And I was like, you probably thought that looked so graceful in your mind.
And then you get the picture back.
To him that he could still run and jump at that point after 200 miles. But
yeah,
I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Although, have the most fun, because that's what this is about.
It should be fun.
And it really should be. And I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And I hope that we have talked to everyone that listens to this podcast into understanding that, take your mantra and do different hard things. A mountain 100, a looped 100, like that is a treadmill 100. No one's going to say you didn't run 100 miles because you did it on the treadmill. You still did it. I actually am crazy enough to, so I definitely have 100 in mind that I plan on signing up for. It's hard to get into. So I did it once before and had to take myself out of it. Like I didn't even DNS. I withdrew earlier than that. But so I know how, so I'm the ownership team of Jason and Ohm and myself are planning on Javelina next year. I was signed up for Javelina in 2022 and had to take myself out like a month or two in advance. But you have to pretty much, if you know anything about Javelina, you have to pretty much register on like the first of the year when it opens, or you're ending up on a wait list. So I can't say that we're doing it yet because we have to actually get in before the wait list fills and everything. But also I have considered a 200, and especially the Oregon 200, because it's not as common. Like it's a newer race, so not as many people run it. And it's I lived in the desert of Phoenix for a few years, and Oregon, and I've lived in Oregon and Washington. I will take Oregon over, say, Cocodona or something. It sounds a little bit cooler, still definitely difficult in its own ways and things. But so there's so many things out there that if you want to achieve them, you can. And you are a great example of that. I'm a great example of that. The one thing I definitely forgot to ask you, the icebreaker question, which is the show is called Caffeinated Coaching. Are you a caffeine junkie? And what's your favorite type of caffeine?
I really hope my cardiologist doesn't see this. But yes.
Same.
I actually, interestingly enough, I'm a tea girl, but I have gotten into coffee over the last 6 months or a year. So every now and then I'll do a coffee in the morning with hazelnut creamer. Actually, I did have a coffee from Starbucks the other day, and it was quite lovely. It was something with praline in it, something seasonal.
The seasonal praline one is pretty good. I had it last Sunday or something.
It's good, right? During a race, anything 50K or over, it's Coke.
Yeah.
It's like Coca-Cola. Let's just clear that up. It's Coca-Cola.
Not cocaine. We're not taking we're not bumping.
Yeah.
Jason is laughing from the production back room of this. We Coca-Cola, full sugar, right? We're not.
Oh, no. The whole thing.
I mean, I love Diet Coke on a regular basis, but Like
Not
when
during a
you're
race.
doing a race, you need the sugar and the
Yeah,
something about Coca-Cola brings you to life during
it
a
does.
long
It
race.
is the nectar of the gods during a race.
I when
That
I
and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Okay, I'm allergic to peanuts, but
Oh, quesadillas?
I'm allergic to everything, so people would think I'm insane for doing 100 milers the way I do them, or even anything over 50K. I literally am eating plain rice or plain oatmeal or salted rice.
Hmm.
So I have a funny video from across the years. I did back-to-back 50Ks at across the years last year, and I have a video of myself walking with a bowl of rice, like eating
I
this
love
like
it.
plain bowl of rice.
I love it.
I mean, Ohm did something like 300 miles. And so it was like the middle, like late at night, we were
Wow.
walking together and just like telling dumb stories. And so I'm eating my bowl of rice. But I'm the weirdest person to fuel, which is another reason the Oregon 200 appeals to me, because if I do it with someone, like I'm going to have to pack all of my own fuel with me. Aid stations, because I'm allergic to so many things. The Coca-Cola and candy is about the only thing I hit up at aid stations. But I love
But
that
those are important.
Yes, the candy, but at some point you get sick of it. You're like, no
Yeah.
more candy. And chips too. Like, no, I
Yeah.
can't eat another chip or another like candy bar. Please don't. Uh, that's what I don't think anything sounds that amazing. I love that you love the peanut butter jelly sandwiches.
I
Jason
do.
has a funny story about Lake Sonoma 50 and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sometime the audience, you'll have to message Jason and ask him his funny story about his peanut butter and jelly. It was like crusty.
There's a picture of me from Tunnel Hill on my Instagram of me absolutely celebrating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because you got to find the little things,
Yes.
and I'm also just realizing I'm sunburned. I volunteered at a marathon yesterday to hand out medals, which is a super fun experience. I
Thank
love
you
to
to the
watch.
volunteers out there.
Yes,
Always.
100%. But I love to watch people triumph. And so that for me is, I always tell people, if you want to see the power of the human spirit, go stand at the finish line
Of
of
anything.
any race, whether it's 1 mile, a 5K, a 10K, 100-mile. Just stand there and watch people finish and watch what happens to them when they cross the line.
I would have never like understood that until I did it at Lake Sonoma. I watched from the first finisher of the 50, and it's a pretty iconic 50 miler. So and I think it has a purse too, if I'm remembering correctly. But purse, to those of you who don't run, is money that you can win at the end. But anyway, I watched to the first person to the last, and pretty much the last. And it is a try. And it was so hot that day. It was over 100 degrees and there's no shade on that course. So people were falling across the line and just like full body spasming. The first place winner or second place, they literally just fell across the line in this like full body spasm because they were so dehydrated and hot and stuff. But it is such a triumph for the human spirit. And I love the race directors, like shout out to Skip and Healdsburg Running, who he pumped the music that day, and like everybody had cowbells when it got to like the golden hour. And we were just like all screaming for everybody coming across in those like late hours and stuff. It is like a feeling you can't get unless you have been there and done that sort of thing. And it's just amazing to see people triumph.
I have to wear sunglasses because I tear up every time.
Yeah,
I don't cry when I finish my own races, but I do when I watch other people finish.
Yeah, I would say the same. We won't tell your cardiologist that you've been drinking coffee. You and I will have to get coffee sometime, and maybe
for
run a
sure.
race together. It's been great talking to you, and I hope that
I love this.
Anyone who is interested in like doesn't think they can accomplish something, reach out to one of us. We will tell you that despite your cardiology issues, my bone and I guess joint issues, like we have accomplished these things, and we will help you and tell you all of the mantras you could ever want to hear. Thank you so much.
That's what I tell every athlete that I work with, is I will make you believe in yourself, whether you want me to or not.
Yes. And I love that. I'm the same way. I will make you realize you can do it. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, absolutely. This has been so much fun.
It has. We will obviously continue to talk.